On February 17, 1864, Confederate Submarine became the first in history to sink an enemy warship. That same night, it vanished. 8 men were inside it. Nobody saw it again for 131 years. When divers finally found it in 1995, sitting upright on the ocean floor, the crew were still at their stations. No signs of panic. No attempt to escape. Every man exactly where he was supposed to be when the mission began. Most people know the Hunley sank a Union warship. What I want to know is what actually killed the men inside it, because even now, after raising the submarine, after 2 decades of forensic study, scientists still do not fully agree. I went back and checked this one twice before I believed it myself. History. The H.L. Hunley was a hand-cranked Confederate submarine, about 40 feet long, built in Mobile, Alabama, in 1863. 8 men sat shoulder to shoulder inside a metal tube barely 4 feet wide, turning a hand crank connected to the propeller. It was cramped, dark, and it had already killed people before it ever fired a shot. During testing, the Hunley sank twice. The first sinking drowned 5 crew members. The second sinking drowned the submarine's own designer, Horace Hunley, along with the rest of his crew. Confederate officers raised it both times, and both times new volunteers stepped forward to try again. That alone tells you something about how desperate the Confederacy was to break the Union blockade of Charleston Harbor. The Hunley's weapon was a spar torpedo, a copper explosive charge mounted on a long pole extending from the bow. The plan was simple. Ram the charge into an enemy hole below the waterline, back away, then detonate it by rope. The battle on the night of February 17, 1864. The Hunley set out toward the USS Housatonic, a Union warship blockading Charleston Harbor. Lieutenant George Dixon commanded a crew of 7 others. The submarine approached, mostly submerged, barely visible above the surface. Housatonic's crew spotted something in the water, too late to stop it. The Hunley drove its spar torpedo into the warship's hull and backed away. The explosion tore open Housatonic below the waterline. She sank in about 5 minutes. 5 Union sailors died. It was the first time in naval history a submarine had sunk an enemy warship in combat. Witnesses on shore reported seeing a blue signal light from the Hunley shortly after the attack, a prearranged sign that the mission had succeeded and the crew was heading home. Then nothing. The Hunley never reached shore. It never resurfaced. 8 men and the submarine that made history simply disappeared into Charleston Harbor that night. Present day for 131 years. Nobody knew where the Hunley was. Then, in 1995, a team led by author and shipwreck hunter Clive Cussler located the submarine buried under sediment about 4 miles off Sullivan's Island, roughly 100 feet from where Housatonic went down. In 2000, the Hunley was finally raised and brought to a conservation lab in North Charleston. What conservators found inside stopped a lot of people cold. The crew were still seated at their stations, in order, hands still near the crank. There was no evidence of a rush toward the hatch. No broken bones from struggle. No sign anyone tried to escape. Whatever killed them appears to have happened fast enough that none of them moved. The hatches were not even open. This is the detail that changed the entire investigation. If the crew had simply run out of air, you would expect signs of panic, men crowding toward an exit. There were none. Why is it still a mystery for years after the raising? The leading theory was suffocation, that the crew finished the mission, then slowly ran out of oxygen in the dark on the way back and lost consciousness quietly, one by one. It's a clean explanation, and for a while, most researchers accepted it. Here's the part that still doesn't add up. In 2017, a team of researchers led by Duke University re-examined the crew's remains and the submarine's construction and came to a very different conclusion. The Hunley's spar torpedo detonated only about 16 feet from the crew compartment, far closer than most experts had assumed. At that distance, an explosion underwater doesn't just make noise. It sends a shockwave through the water that can rupture soft tissue in the lungs and brain almost instantly, without leaving a mark on the bones. The Duke study concluded the blast itself likely killed the crew within seconds, before any of them had time to react. That would explain the missing panic. It would explain the men still seated calmly at their stations. But it does not explain everything. If the crew died instantly, who or what powered the submarine far enough forward to end up in its final resting position, roughly in line with a course home? Some researchers argue momentum and current alone could account for the drift. Others aren't convinced. The blue signal light reported from shore adds another layer nobody has fully resolved. If the blast killed the crew almost immediately, was the light even real, or misidentified fire, or reflection in the dark? Every theory solves part of the puzzle and leaves another part open. That is the strange part of the Hunley story that recovery did not fix. Most wrecks on this channel stay mysterious because nobody can reach them. The Hunley is different. Divers found it. Engineers raised it. Conservators spent years studying it inch by inch. And the central question, what exactly happened to those 8 men in the final moments, is still argued over by the scientists, who have had the most direct access to the evidence of anyone in this story. Conclusion: so, that is where the Hunley stands. Not lost at the bottom of an ocean nobody can reach, but fully recovered, fully studied, sitting in a conservation tank in North Charleston, and still not fully understood. The submarine that made history by sinking a warship spent 131 years, hiding the truth about its own crew's final moments. And even now, with the evidence sitting right in front of researchers, the full picture still will not come into focus. The crew were eventually given a full military burial in 2004, laid to rest with the same honors given to any sailor lost in service. The questions, though, are still open. Now, if you enjoyed this one, let me know in the comments, and I will keep digging into the ones history never fully explained.